9 propane tanks were involved in a series of explosions and fires in downtown Illinois on Father's Day 1970, and 3 months later, federal regulators issued new rules governing large propane tank cars. But the biggest one ever built was already sitting in a yard because nobody would buy it. It was 7:30 in the morning in Crescent City, population 650. 3 tanks went up at once. A massive fireball shot hundreds of feet into the air. People saw it from 6 miles away. Then another one blew, and another. Multiple major explosions occurred over several hours. One piece of tank flew 1,600 feet, smashed through 2 houses and a garage before it stopped. 66 people were injured, most of them firefighters who were trying to put the fire out. 18 businesses were destroyed, and 15 homes were flattened. The fires burned for 2.5 days straight. Each of the tank cars involved carried roughly 34,000 gallons of propane. 3 months later, federal regulators issued new rules governing large propane tank cars. No newly built tank cars going forward could exceed about 34,500 gallons or weigh more than 263,000 pounds. The reason was simple. Bigger cars hit harder in a crash, spill more, and wreck the track. Here is the part that gets weird. That regulation would have made cars like GATX 96500 non-compliant for new construction, the biggest tank car ever built. Nearly 60,000 gallons, longer than a semi-truck with its trailer. It had an empty weight far higher than conventional tank cars of the era. General American finished it in September 1965, 5 years before Crescent City. In those 5 years, no railroad ever placed it into regular revenue service. Nobody wanted it. Pennsylvania Railroad brought it in for testing. They had tunnels from the 1870s and bridges built for locomotives half that weight. Pennsylvania Railroad evaluated its clearances and infrastructure limits and chose to pursue a smaller in-house design instead at their shops in Hollidaysburg. 38,000 gallons, shorter, lighter. That car remained in service for decades through Penn Central and Conrail. It still sits at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania today. New York Central was not buying either. Southern Pacific said it was too heavy. Several major railroads reviewed the design and declined to adopt it. Union Tank Car had already figured it out. UTLX 83699 was built in 1963. It was a 50,000-gallon, 4-truck design, 10,000 gallons lighter than what GATX was pushing. That car went into service hauling liquefied petroleum gas, and it ran in regular service for roughly 2 decades. It made money the whole time. GATX pushed it too far. The Whale needed 4 trucks with 16 wheels just to carry the load. Eastern roads could not fit it through their tunnels. Western roads could fit it, but the weight tore up the rails. The loaded weight was reported in the low to mid 400,000 pound range. You needed perfect track just to run it without destroying the roadbed. 5 years it sat there. 5 years of pitches and demos. The engineering worked fine. Whalebelly design, weight spread across 4 trucks, and a low center of gravity. Railroads just did not want it. Then, Toledo, Peoria, and Western runs train number 20 through Illinois on Father's Day. 109 cars, 12 of them carrying propane, 34,000 gallons each. 6:30 in the morning, the train rolls through Crescent City. Reports indicate smoke was observed from one of the cars several miles earlier, but nobody stopped it. A journal bearing on one of the cars overheated and failed. The truck dropped, and 15 cars left the rails at the west switch downtown. 10 of them were propane tanks. Impact forces during the derailment breached at least 1 tank car. Propane started venting and lit up instantly. Fire swallowed the other 9 tanks in seconds. Fire Chief Orville Carlson was home when it blew. He felt the heat through his windows. 20 volunteers rolled out with 2 pumpers. The blast had killed the power grid, which meant the water pumps were down. They were fighting propane fires with truck tanks and whatever pressure was left in the hydrants. 1 hour in, the first BLEV hit. 3 tanks at once. Windows rattled 6 miles away in Watseka. Then the 4th tank blew. The 5th. The 6th. Explosions kept coming all morning. Chunks of steel turned into missiles. One piece traveled 1,600 feet before it crashed into somebody's house. Remarkably, No fatalities were reported, though many people were injured. $2 million in damage. Most of downtown Crescent City was erased. The propane kept burning until June 23rd. Those tanks were already under the limit the government was thinking about. 34,000 gallons. The regulation 3 months later would not have stopped Crescent City, but it made cars like GATX 96500 non-compliant for future construction. The rule had a grandfather clause. Cars already running could keep running. UTLX 83699 kept hauling into the mid-80s. Other big tanks stayed in service for years. Some were cut down to smaller sizes, maybe a quarter of them. The Whale never got grandfathered because it never ran. You can't protect a car that never hauled a paying load. 6 months after the regulation took effect, General American donated GATX 96500 to the National Museum of Transportation in St. Louis. It cost GATX a fortune to build, and after 5 years of trying to sell it, the car went straight to a museum. The tax write-off probably helped. The public relations worked better than the sales pitch. Calling it the world's largest tank car sounds good when you skip the part where nobody bought it. The museum posted a sign. It listed the car as 97 feet long, would not clear tight curves, and mentioned an 89-foot limit. People read that and assumed there was some federal rule about length. There never was. The rule limited gallons and weight, not length. 89 feet just happened to be about as long as you could make a car under 34,500 gallons. Some channels ran videos saying the Federal Railroad Administration banned cars over 89 feet. Wrong. PRR's experimental large-capacity tank car remained in service for decades. Length was not the problem. The problem was GATX built something railroads did not want. By the time federal rules made it non-compliant, the decision had already been made by the market. Union Tank Car understood the market. 50,000 gallons gave railroads serious capacity over the old 13,000-gallon cars, but it stayed light enough that most roads could run it. It made money for 20 years. PRR knew their system. They measured their clearances, did the math, and built what worked on their tracks. That car worked across 3 different railroads for 30 years. GATX built the showcase. Maximum capacity, maximum engineering, maximum everything. The design was brilliant. The market did not care. Crescent City experienced its catastrophic derailment and explosions on June 21st. Regulation dropped on September 9th. GATX donated the Whale 6 months later. The car was effectively sidelined by a combination of market rejection and federal regulation. GATX 96,500 sits in St. Louis with fading paint. PRR 500,001 sits in Pennsylvania with 30 years of service under it. One never worked, the other did. The government formalized the limits. The market had already made the decision. Crescent City buried it.